I have 2 teenage boys. We don't know yet if they have PKD. I'm raising them as they do, with diet and exercise, and hoping that they don't, but I'm preparing myself if they do, and we're going to find a cure.
PKD stands for Polycystic Kidney Disease. It's one of the most common inherited diseases in humans. It can cause kidney failure in about 50% of those affected, and right now there's no cure at all for PKD.
So it's really the most important life-threatening hereditary disease, not just kidney, but all diseases. So it's very common.
PKD has a great impact, mainly it's not only on one patient, it's on families. This is an inherited disorder. And if you can think about it, usually is or a mom or a dad that has the disorder, and then when they have pretty much kids, 1 out of 2, 3 out of 5 kids might get the disease.
My father passed away from polycystic kidney disease when he was 38, and when I was 24 I was diagnosed with it, and within 6 months of that my children, all 3 of them, were also diagnosed with it at very early ages.
My mother missed my daughter's birth by a day. She died the night before my daughter. I want to be able to meet my grandchildren, and I'd like her to be able to meet hers. And these clinical trials help us get information about what we have and what we can do in order to hopefully slow the progression of the disease.
I'm getting involved in these studies because I want desperately for the medical community to pay attention to this disease. I want them to work hard to find a cure, and I want my children to be able to have children. That's not something they consider now.
I got in clinical studies because I saw what my mom went through. She had PKD and she got really blown up. It got into her liver and kidneys, and I saw what that did to her and go, man, they need to find a cure for PKD because I want to see other people go through what my mom went through.
We have got to the point that we're at today through all of the people who volunteered in previous clinical trials. However, to move forward, we need you to step up, be a part of our clinical trials going forward, and help us overcome the hurdles so as we can get these new interventions out here on the market that will benefit everybody with PKD.
We need to understand that if you have a design, if you have the funding, if you have everything but you don't have the participants, you don't have a study. It's like having a Ferrari with no gas.
Taking part in clinical studies has led to improved health in patients with polycystic kidney disease.
Participants that come into clinical studies, they have great benefits. And participants don't realize this. And this has been even studied by other studies. They get a lot of free health care. We have to remember that each time they do clinical studies, they do a lot of baseline blood work, baseline imaging studies that will be very costly for that participant, even if they would have insurance coverage. PKD patients have problems with blood pressure control. If you're in a study for a 6-month period, that patient is going to be seeing a research nurse who's experienced on blood pressure control, going to see a nephrologist, a physician experienced on blood pressure control, monthly. So that patient, that particular patient at the end of the study will have their blood pressure significantly better controlled if they would not be in the study.
This clinical study has impacted me by physically saving my life. Some of the blood work that I had done was very, very abnormal, and I was sent to the emergency room where it was found I was in total kidney failure.
Being in a clinical study keeps me in it. It holds me accountable and keeps me as an active participant in my own health. So I'm not just depending on doctors. I'm not just depending on things that I hear or read. I'm not hiding out in fear of what the future will be like. I'm being as accountable to myself and to my family as I can at this moment in time. I'm being connected with people who can inform me even more about my disease and give me suggestions or thoughts or tell me about where the research is going. And that empowers me and makes me feel a good deal of hope.
I think the studies that I've been involved in have kind of opened my eyes to certain aspects. Like I did a diet study, and it really helped me, focus on better eating and fluid intake. And so that's changed dramatically. I'm more conscious of what I eat and what I intake and what's good for me and what will, keep me healthier longer.
From the different studies, I have seen that my kidney size hasn't grown as exponentially as they expected. When I was in utero, I was diagnosed with it, and so they expected by the time that I was 20 that I was supposed to have a kidney transplant. But I'm 16 now, and I'm still at normal function, and my kidneys are normal size.
We've had a great opportunity to have the families come and have the children participate in various aspects of the research study, which usually involves having your blood drawn and checking your urine and getting x-ray tests like MRI or ultrasound. We also try to make it a fun experience for the kids.
They've always put my kids at ease. With a study you have to sometimes get a shot, or you have to have a hospital stay, and that can be scary for kids, but my kids actually love the studies, love coming here. They love Dr. Melissa. She is wonderful.
It's really critical for youth to be involved in clinical trials in PKD. We know from studies in the past that interventions that start when you're losing kidney function in adulthood happen too late, and we really can't significantly alter the course of progressive loss of kidney function. We know that kids are generally doing well with their PKD. We have an opportunity at that point to intervene and keep their kidneys from growing as quickly as they might otherwise. And in the long run, many years from now, we hope that means that their kidney function remains normal for a longer period of time.
There are different kinds of studies that you can avail yourself of. There's from the one end where it's just observational, which is they're just tracking you. They take a baseline measurement at a particular point in time, and they just ask you to come back periodically to redo that measurement so they can compare against, so they know how the disease is progressing. It doesn't do anything to attack the disease, but it helps to build a strategy for doing that. And so that's a very low impactment of participation. And then you go all the way to the other side, which is the clinical trials, where you're actually taking a drug, which is an active role, which is to attack the disease, and then to see how it attacks disease, how does the disease react to the drug. And that's a little more involved, a little more time consuming, if you would, for the patient to do that. So there's a wide range of ways you can participate in these activities to help improve knowledge of the disease and ultimately cure people of the disease.
So there are many ways that children and families can find out about research studies that children can be involved in. There are websites to search, like clinicaltrials.gov, where everyone posts the ongoing clinical trials happening across the country. We also always work with the PKD Foundation to let everybody know about the research studies that we're doing.
Those individuals who are best to recruit patients for PKD studies are those who have the experience in participating in trials, but also nephrologists. A lot of times patients will go to their nephrologist and are looking to participate in trials. So networking is really important. Feeling comfortable with referring your patient to a doctor specifically who may specialize in PKD is very important.
Being in the clinical observational study helps me have a better relationship with my nephrologist, because it informs me so much that I think that my questions are much more detailed than they would have been had I not had all of this previous information.
Every time I go for the research, I do get data back from them, and I give it to my doctor, and he puts it in my file, and we talk about it. And he's now very interested.
I'm very grateful that my doctor referred me to the study. I wouldn't have known how to do that without her. And it just opened up so many opportunities for me and actually made me feel like I was doing something.
My nephrologist came in and said that there was a nurse coordinator who was involved in several studies regarding PKD, and she wanted to talk with me to see if I would be interested in being playing a part. And she sat and told me in detail everything that would happen in the study, and actually a few studies, and asked me whether I felt like any of these would work for me. And when I chose one, I had to fill out a series of consents, and then I was basically in the observational study.
Prior to the first visit, we do a lot of communication over the phone during the screening of the patient for the study. And then when the actual visit occurs, we pretty much go through the same process again. We discuss everything that's written on the consent, because it is a legal agreement in terms of what they're willing to do for the study, the length of the study, the types of procedures that are going to go on during the study, and we go through that thoroughly.
It's really a hallmark that once the participants sign the consent form, are willing to come to every single visit. When you're doing a study, you're doing a lot of measurements. And these measurements happen in different clinic visits. And we need all these measurements to make a meaningful conclusion of our treatment.
So if you imagine a study in which a large number of patients drop out and the data comes just from the patients that we have left, it's not going to be very complete and not very representative. The study has to be large enough to have enough power to draw conclusions. So if the study is too small and has too few participants, then the results could occur simply by random chance.
Finding a treatment for polycystic kidney disease, it will be huge. Just imagine being a patient with polycystic kidney disease, that potentially there is a treatment that will change your potential course, not only yours, but of your family members.
We have the opportunity to roll up our sleeves and say, hey, I qualify for this. I just looked online, investigate, see if it's something that you want to be involved in, and go for it and be part of it and stay the course, because you might be that one person that they learn something about.
I am very optimistic. I think we're very close. We clearly have drugs that have some effect, and I hope that we'll be able to find one that is sufficiently effective that we can convince the FDA that it's worth using.
This is not easy. Participating in clinical trials requires time, commitment, resources, and we understand that not every trial is successful. Sometimes additional questions need to be asked. The important thing is to understand that those trials are building a foundation for the development of new therapies that are going to make a difference. So whether that first trial is successful, whether that second trial points the way to new directions and new drugs, don't lose hope. Don't stop being involved in the consortium and working with other patients to understand how best to support these trials. They're important, even if the road is longer than we wish it were. FDA understands our job is to make that road as short as possible, as efficient as possible, and we want to work with you to help find ways to do that.
If we are ever to have hope of having these new interventions be available for everyone with PKD, your contribution is absolutely invaluable, so step up and be a medical hero.